Are we awakening or are we being put further to sleep with all of this information around spiritual teachings, around spirituality, around coming to understand the bigger picture of our planet? There's so much information out there, and so often we can get caught up in this information. We can get even addicted to wanting more information. What's happening in the world in terms of politics and world in terms of this spirituality, realization, this shift that we're going through of coming to realize spirit, coming to shift in our consciousness and transition our way of life on earth. There's so much information out there, and literally we can spend all day, every day, just consuming more and more information. And the question is it supporting us to awaken further on our journeys? Or is it furthermore putting us to sleep and offering another form of distraction and avoidance? Shit. So if you're ready, I am James. I invite you to take a walk with me here today on this beautiful path, on this beautiful day. Always so good to get out in nature. Always so healing. To gain clarity, to gain peace. And of course to feel my feet on the earth, as you see. Always trying to be barefoot as much as possible and in connection to the earth as much as possible. Really take in those benefits. So I can see for myself and people around, especially within more of the developed worlds, how we are drawn to gain information and insights in not only the ancient teachings of the past, but also trying to understand what's happening here now on our planet in terms of politics, in terms of this spiritual battle that we're seeing play out in the physical reality, and how each of us as individuals are sort of also forced to take such huge steps in our own spiritual battles, in our own process of healing and awakening. And it's a deep, deep process that, in many ways seem impossible. Just to awaken consciously, to realize there's more to life, and to desire a healthy, fulfilling lifestyle, and to be able to bridge that into our realities here. That alone is such a big step that really asks us to deprogram all of our thoughts and to realign with that of our highest nature that is in complete contrast to everything we've been raised to believe. So it's huge, huge steps we're taking, and it's super helpful to gain insight and information, in terms of understanding a bigger picture of what's happening on our planets as this great shift is occurring on many levels. Like the pole is shifting on our planet, the North Pole is moving, and everything is changing. And definitely the alignment of the planets are forcing us to go into a higher vibration, a higher frequency, and essentially those that have been in power and gained so much from the current sort of level of consciousness want to, of course, maintain that power, as all of us probably would if we spent our whole lives or many generations acquiring this wealth, these riches, this power. So in a way it can be really simple, and in another way it's really profound. Let's take a little side trail here. So our natural curiosity to understand what's happening and to gain insight of others, as we're all channels and receiving so much information through this process. It's really amazing that we're able to do this through these channels like YouTube. And this curiosity never ends, I see. And is something that we can become so addicted to and need to feed ourselves with more information, what's happening. And some of the information isn't healthy, some of it's just sensationalizing and even creating more fears. So I see we have to really discern, even if we're not watching mainstream news or having a television, we still need to discern how we process and receive information, and is it helpful or is it not? And does it resonate with us in terms of supporting us to be in harmony, supporting our higher good and our ability to serve our purpose in life? And so I think the biggest concern though is having a balance of receiving information and still being able and willing to take action in our lives. And I believe this is the biggest step in terms of, not falling under the trap of the intellectualization of spirituality, in which we're coming to learn about things intellectually and sort of tricking ourselves that we are becoming wiser or raising our vibrations, when we're really just gaining new knowledge and wisdom and insight that we ourselves, we still need to integrate, we still need to embody. So there's a difference between an intellectualization of spirit or of the soul, purpose, or of your existence, and a realization or an actualization towards that of which we are. So are we coming to realize this within ourselves, and are we on a path of self-actualization to embody the truth of beings of light that we are, with infinite possibilities and created in the image of God and perfection as gods and goddesses that we are? It's really a great question of coming further to embody this and to take steps in our life to realign with a lifestyle that's actually supporting not only us to further awaken because we're living in healthy ways, and maybe that's the big step that we're needing to take, is just to realign to what's healthy for us as humans in terms of living in harmony with nature, for example, and having access to healthy foods is another great example. And the need possibly to grow it ourselves is another good example of becoming further self-sustainable and not reliant on the financial system, the food system, and all these other components. So to realign our life to serve our higher purpose is really important, but even more so to do this for the next generation. Because if we don't take the steps here now within this lifetime, the next generation is going to be even more difficult to take those steps. You can see in our life that if we're being called or asked to take a certain step and we put it off, trying to avoid it, not trying to listen to it, then we can end up going further along that path where it becomes more and more difficult to make that change, until eventually it really shakes us. Often it becomes like an illness, or maybe you get fired from your job, or whatever reason that shows in your life. Because you weren't listening at the start, you pushed further and further, and it had to really show to us those steps that we're needing to take. So it's amazing that we're more and more willing and able to take these steps for ourselves when we first feel that call, and able to do that in grace and trust that we are supported to take those steps. That's why we're being asked to take them. And so we are restoring our ability to trust and to be in faith. So that's only through our actions that we can actually do that. We have to be willing to face our fears, to test ourselves, to come and recognize our ability to be held and carried through the unknown, to really see how supported we are by this whole universe and this planets and creator and people around us, as we align with those that are also on similar paths, who really care as humans towards one another and towards our children and towards our elders, and appreciating what everyone brings because we have so much to celebrate. So really, this path of self-actualization requires us to take steps in our life. And if for a long time we've been putting off taking those steps, or we have been complacent or lazy or avoiding taking those steps, then it can get harder. And so if you think about not only the next generation, but if you as a human return back in your next lifetime and things are worse on the planet, it's partly because of our own choices. So we can also take responsibility for where we are here now, because it's us as humans that co-created this reality in our past lifetimes, and now we're here to experience it. And so we could then experience it in future lifetimes as well. So what better time to do this work than now, you know? It makes no sense to put it off anymore, especially now as everything is losing its sense. It's like, I'd hate to say that it's the first wake-up call, but it's maybe an early wake-up call. Like sometimes we're under this fear, this threat, like it's too late, and therefore part of us wants to just give up, you know? And this sense of hopelessness has been fed to us, I think, for so many years. And I can relate to many years ago, around 2012, feeling like it'd just be easier if we had this big apocalyptic event and forced us to change. And we see, like, through COVID, for example, we had this experience, and yet change was really slow to come from it. You know, some people changed drastically, and others were so quick to go back to their old ways and willing to do whatever they could to resume their lives and feel that sense of security, which I think is really played with as we have evolved so much, but yet we've devolved in our capacity to face our fears because of our vulnerability, depending upon the current systems in place. We don't have our feet on the ground like we used to. We don't recognize our resiliency and have the capacity to face our fears and to live in trust. So we've lost this very much. And you can see, like, in the past we used to do initiations, you know, growing up, not even as adults. We would do initiations in our adolescence to face our fears and to surrender our faith, surrender our lives in faith, to trust that if we're meant to die, we're going to die, and if we're meant to live, we're going to live. And it's through those experiences that we come furthermore to recognize our appreciation towards life and this courage that we have, you know, deep down inside of us. But it only comes out when we're forced to face it, forced to have this courage and develop this faith. And so, again, a lot of us are trying to hold on to what we know from the past, and unable to move forward to realize something greater. And yet, this is what we're here for. So I encourage you to enjoy and celebrate your magical journey, because you are magic.